I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, a woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
So July 3rd, you say you're ready to take your life.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
I look back now and it's like so cheesy, but the 4th of July is my favorite holiday. And I don't really understand what had happened, but I basically was in a place where I just thought, you know, if I'm going to go, I'm going to do it before my favorite holiday. Like I had had enough of being homeless and shoeless and walking around and making deals with the devil, as I call people that sell that kind of stuff nowadays. And I basically just, decided that I was going to try to take my own life, sadly.
But it didn't.
No. So I ended up overdosing in a public bathroom. And as odd as it is, if you go to a public bathroom and it's locked, occupied, you move on to the next one, right? Well, somebody, and thank God that they did, was stubborn enough to call security and get people there, said something's not right here, and they found me overdosed on the floor. I got hit with Narcan, came to extremely angry, thinking to myself, I'm still here? Like, I'm still alive? Became super combative, so I was ultimately charged with possession, escorted off the property, and, restraints and stuff because I was trying to get away from everybody and trying to... Yeah, I look back now and people have told me, like, dude, you were insane. Like, you were acting completely crazy.
So when you were saved, basically, and came to, your first response was anger because you didn't want to be here.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anger. And at that point, I no longer really cared, right? Like, I'm swinging at people. I'm throwing stuff. I'm just super angry and irritated. Number one, because I'm instantly going through withdrawals. And number two, I'm super disappointed. Like when I was ready to go, when I made that choice, there was no goodbye letters. It was 110%. I was ready to go join my dad and my brother. Like, I was done. So yeah, I came to and I was extremely upset. You know what though? I look back now, and as dark and as heavy as that is, I'm actually super grateful for that day. I am. In a crazy way, that is the first day that started me on my road to recovery. Sitting in a jail cell, detoxing. I'm in the jail cell all by myself because, who wants to be in a jail cell with somebody who's coming off heroin, especially as strong as I was doing it. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion, I'm very Christian, right? And it's the first time I ever said a prayer. And it wasn't a pretty prayer. It was a very angry prayer, like, God, why? Why am I still here? What am I meant for? And ultimately I came to the conclusion that, okay, if it's not my time, then point me in the right direction. Show me the way to go. How do I make something? I've lost everything.
So throughout all this craziness, this is the first time that you looked to the heavens or looked for an answer to say, give me some direction, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know a lot of people, people say they find God in jail, right? Like I get that. And as cliche as it is, I can't. That's exactly how it happened. Like that's my story. That's my experience. Is in frustration, and probably the ugliest, angriest, most frustrated prayer you've ever heard was like, okay, like I submit my will. Step number 1.
Do you think it was the most honest prayer you've ever given?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's saying something. Is that you were ready to be honest with yourself and honest with God and ask. And did He give you an answer?
Slowly over time. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I basically got sentenced to 365 days early release from the MRC program, Men's Recovery Center. And I was arrested down here in Salt Lake, but I had previous charges up in Davis County. And that's why they kind of broke me off. So I had felony on felony probation type. You can imagine, right? Just a mess. My life was a mess, guys. So I go up there to serve my sentence, get released after several months to the MRC.
Now,
Center.
what is the MRC?
The Men's Recovery Center. And it's based out of Davis Behavioral Health. And it was, you would go to the work center, and they would come get you every morning. You'd go to therapy, groups, rec activities, exercise, not all on the same day, obviously. It was scheduled throughout the week. And then you'd go back to the jail at night. So that was my rehab.
And the program's no longer there. And, a little insight off air, you said it was an okay program, but you were ready to receive the message.
It was, if I'm being completely honest, it was a terrible program because you were in there with people that had been counted out from the prisons and just people that were completely antisocial and narcissistic. And so they would go to group, right? And I would think, well, I was at the point where I was ready for change. I was desperate and I didn't care. So I'd cry in group. You know what I mean? I was completely vulnerable. I talked about how much I missed my kids and my family and just put all my dirt out there. And then we'd get back to the section at night and I would get harassed about it. And they'd steal my pillow and throw it in the shower. And you know what I mean? Just childish stuff.
You were ready for change. You were giving the program a chance to work for you. And these guys were just there to do their time and mess with you, and they weren't taking it seriously.
Well, sadly, a lot of them had heard through the grapevine that if you're in there on drug charges, and just like me, they sentence you to 365 days early release to the MRC program. Once you complete the program, you get out early. So you don't necessarily serve 365 days.
So they would just play the game to get out early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the recovery world that are good at playing the game.
Sure.
Both with the parents, with the recovery. Like when I worked at Pinnacle Recovery and I talked to some people on the phone that had been through the recovery system before, they knew all the right phrases to say.
Sure.
They knew all the right questions to ask. They knew how to check every box to ensure that they could stay longer or get into this recovery center. It becomes a game, a way that they get their
Work
fix.
in the system.
Work in the system.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are ready for the message, and you were.
Yeah, I definitely was. And I had a therapist that was awesome. She pulled me in, and I told, she said, "You've been off lately, what's going on?" And I explained to her what was happening. And she said something that completely changed me forever. She said, "Jared, when you get released from this program, do you ever plan on hanging out with these people again?" I said, "Well, no, of course not, right?" She said, "Then why do you care what they think?" That's a great question. So, of course, we all, when we get put in social pressure, we, to some degree, care. We want to feel like we fit in. We don't want to feel like the outcast, right?
No.
Right.
But
And you didn't want a soggy pillow. I mean, nobody wants that.
Right, yeah. Or getting threats
But that's
of
a
getting
good,
locked and socked.
that insight, I can tell as you're telling that, meant something to you. And there are moments of insight that we have that propel us forward in our behavior change process. And sometimes realizing something that seems obvious, but it sinks in deep and you realize, yeah, why do I care what they think of me? Was that freeing for you? What did that do for you in future visits to the program?
It absolutely was freeing. It was freeing in a way where I realized she's right. I'm not trying to impress anybody here. I'm going to be true to me and get out of this what I can get out of this. So that, because honestly, all rehabilitation center, inpatient, residential, it's the pregame, right? The kickoff is the day they cut you loose. Mm-hmm. That's when the game starts.
Yeah.
The game of life. So it helped me to realize I'm here to build skills, and I could care less what the people around me think because I'm not here to be Mr. Popular. I did that in high school. I did that in college. I cared about friends and all that. And really, she called me out on my own thing. She's like, "You're used to being Mr. Alpha, and in this situation, you're not. And thank God you're not, right? Because who wants to be the alpha of
these guys?"
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I hate to say that. I'm not trying to make myself sound better, but you got to understand there were people in there that weren't ready for change.
I got a similar story, and I hate to bring it back to me, but I remember when I walked into Pinnacle for the first time, and I'm telling jokes, and I'm trying to do my thing, and somebody goes, "Really? So you want to be the coolest guy in recovery?" And I went, But that's just how I was, and that's why I wanted to be the coolest guy in every room.
Yeah.
And when they called me out on it, I was like, you know what, you're right. I'm here to get my life back. I'm here to learn these skills. And from that point on, I told jokes if I wanted to, but my ultimate goal was not to be the coolest guy in recovery. As a matter of fact, I didn't want to be the guy in recovery.
Yeah.
But here I am, so I got two choices. Either do the work, learn the skills, or be the coolest guy. And I didn't want to be the coolest guy.
Yeah, I see that.
Absolutely.
So how many days did you spend in the program?
I did 9 months total, 6 months of time, and then 3 months in the program, so 90 days. And that includes like the phasing out portion where the last month I lived in kind of almost like a halfway house. That's exactly what it was, a halfway house where you still would go and check in, you'd sleep there, and then go to work throughout the day. And
I want to ask about your kids and your ex-wife during this time. Were they supportive? Were you able to see them, or were you using them as the goal to get back to be able to see them?
Yeah, I have an easy time talking about all this stuff.
But the kids. And if you don't want to, I get it.
No, and it's okay. I can.
Because I remember when my mom brought my kids to see me in recovery, and that was something that I never wanted my kids. I didn't want my kids to have this memory of seeing Dad in the recovery center. Because for the first 30 days I was there, the kids were told, Dad's in a hospital getting help.
Right.
And I remember when I first called my daughter and I said, hey, I'm in a recovery center. And she goes, I know, Dad. Are you getting better? And I go, yeah. And they go, we want to come see you then.
Yeah.
And so, that was really, really tough because I don't think any kid. But now my kids are glad because they know that Dad's a fighter and he's fighting for us to get his life back. So it's all perspective.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that with me. I'm going to answer the question like this. During that time period, there was definitely falling out with my ex-wife, and I think that she felt like she was protecting the kids from me by not bringing them to come see me. And ultimately, I ended up losing rights to my kids, which today, if you ask me today, what is your why? 100% it's to make my kids proud, to be able to get back in their life, to be able to... I know that they're going to know about the dirt. I know that they are. In fact, they probably already do.
What are their ages today?
9 and 8. Yeah.
And do you have contact with them?
I talk to them occasionally. It's all on my ex-wife's terms. Mm-hmm. And so I do what I do today because, call me delusional, but if one day my kid sees me at a school speaking, if one day they hear me on a news broadcast, if one day they see me doing an event, right? Hopefully to them, they'll know, yeah, I made mistakes. But I also have learned from them. I'm extremely driven to be able to give back and correct those mistakes. You know, it's redemption at the end of the day. Yeah.
So you graduate from the program and you've got this newfound lease on life. And as you said in your own words, this is the kickoff. This is when the game begins.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why I do what I do today is because I had some amazing people like that counselor that I think... Again, I'm going to go back to God, right? Because to me, it's a higher power, whatever you want to refer to it as.
Go back to, it's okay. You don't have to apologize. You just do you.
I think people, a lot of times, they expect for like there to be some kind of miracle to happen, for it to be loud and like a car crash, right? But that, to me, in my own journey, I realized our higher power speaks to us through one-on-ones, through soft whispers, through intuition. Like, Jared, get your rear in the car and go up to Salt Lake and do this podcast with Casey Scott and the team, right? And so I do what I do today because I had several people that said things to me or gave me opportunities or gave me chances that made me the person I am today. God willing, I'll get 6 years this summer. And I started out and I worked for a call center. And I had a couple years clean at this point. Fast forward, I worked my ways up, started off doing the calls and worked my way up into management. And I contribute a lot of that to the NA and AA, working a sponsor, doing the steps, everything that they... Again, I was broken, and I knew I was broken, so if somebody told me to do something, I would do it, right? Like, obviously, if you're telling me you've got X amount of years clean, I'm going to model whatever it is you do. You tell me to go jump off a bridge with a parachute on, I'm doing it. So I did that for a long time. And then I had a boss come to me, Bill Weiser, and he said, Jared, we want you to be a part of this leadership training group. And I'll be the first to admit at the time, like, I had stayed clean and sober, but I was still struggling with thinking errors. I still was trying to figure it out. I still, was being triggered right and left. I was holding on. I was white knuckling it, as we call it. I was white knuckling it. And he introduced me to this leadership training group that we did. And this is what I speak on today at a lot of my events that I promote and go out and talk to. Anyways, you get the idea. The book was Extreme Ownership by Jacko Willings and Leif Babin. The book, I'm telling you right now, that book changed my life. Probably because at the time I was one of these guys that was super macho, and I thought, read books, that's dorky, right? Like, I'm way too cool for that. And
that's what Casey says too.
Last book I read was The Call of the Wild in 7th grade.
I know.
Jack London.
See how manly you are?
Yeah. My dad did my report.
I love it. I love it. I completely love that book. Chapter 1, Extreme Ownership. Jacko Willings paints this picture of they're in Ramadi. And the absolute worst thing that can happens. A blue on blue, fracture side, friendly fire. And he's the commander of this battalion that all this happens under. And he finds out he has 3 days until an investigative team gets there. Generals are flying in. And so he basically goes to work and he breaks down how did this happen? This is the first time since Vietnam this has happened, and it happened on my watch. And of course he starts catastrophizing. I'm losing my career. And as he goes through and he checks out the pre-ops, the ops, the communication, and looks for the flaws and the breakdown in leadership, he finds things wrong with everybody. But ultimately, he came to one huge conclusion. Every single one of those leaders under him reported to him. He oversaw the entire operation. So in a big group meeting, he asks, who's this on? Whose fault was this? The pre-ops guy speaks up. It's my fault. He dismisses him. No, it's not. The communications guy, logistics guy speaks up. It's my fault. I didn't thank you, but no. And ultimately, with the investigative team and the generals and everybody sitting in the room, he says, every single one of you report to me. This is on me. This is my fault. And I love that book because it'll talk about a chapter like that is completely foreign to me because I'm not a vet. I have no military experience. But then in the second half of the chapter, it's application to life or application to business. And so in that, I could read that and I could identify with it and go, man, every time that my mom calls me and asks where I'm at, Jared, where you at? I'm at the gym. Are you really at the gym though? Mom, why don't you trust me? Blah, 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 right? That's how it was in the past. After reading this book and understanding these principles, it went like this. Hey, Jared, where you at? I'm at the gym. Are you really at the gym though? Yeah, I am. Look, I understand that because of my past, I have trained you not to trust me. So can I send you pictures? Can I send you a pin drop? What can I do so that you can believe me? And that's when I started seeing massive progress in my life. When I started rebuilding those bridges, when I started repairing those relationships, when I started making amends, which is what we learn in recovery, by owning my own crap and realizing that people treat me this way because of the things that I've done. That was a game changer for me.
Wow.
I think, and I would break it down, tell me if you agree, it's taking ownership of your own stuff in two ways, right? One are the mistakes that you've made that have ruptured the trust that you have with people like your mom and others. The other is taking responsibility for your progress. What am I doing? You are at the gym. You're getting healthier. So it's not just, taking ownership of your mistakes, which is vital, and I think, the step number one. But step number two is then saying, and I have just as much responsibility in making my life go in the direction that I want it to.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Matt, because from that point on, I had a new addiction, and it was called self-reflection, bullet journaling, right, and reading self-help books. Because it's like I thought to myself, if one book can give me this much progress in my life, if this one book can basically fast forward, let's say 5 or 10 years of just trying to wander around in the dark for the light switch, what else am I missing? What else do I not know about? Because you don't know what you don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I really dove into, like, today, people, it's funny when I tell them I do motivational speaking. I literally had somebody, I went to a school, and I knew I had an in, and so I went and I spoke there. And the director of the program afterwards pulls me aside and he said, so I owe you an apology. And I was like, for what? And he's like, I'm not going to lie. When you told me that you were a motivational speaker and like I saw you and everything, like I kind of laughed. Like I thought it was going to be super corny and super cheesy. And he's like, you bring so much knowledge in the content that you bring, because I speak on books. This isn't Jared Miller's program. This is, look, I read book X. Here's a principle in it. Here's how to apply to my life. Where does it show up for you, right? And that was the biggest compliment I could have got, because it really reaffirmed to me that all the hard work I'd been putting in, all of the investing in myself and changing my behaviors, it led to something. God gave me a gift. I no longer look at my addiction as like poor Jared. I look at it now like that's awesome, because there's so many people out there that I can share my story with and try to bring some kind of hope. I do a podcast actually called We Do Recover, and I love featuring people that have gone through the depths of addiction, come out the other side, and not only have they survived, but they've thrived. So addiction didn't define them, it refined them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful statement.
So now you're doing motivational speaking, going to elementary schools, going to junior highs, and you're also working with at-risk youth. Is that correct?
Yeah. I don't come on here to cat or act like I'm something I'm not. I have a side hustle, which is the Miller Motivational Group. My main job is I work as a recreation or an experiential director for a program with youth that are at trouble, substance abuse, that type of stuff.
Down in St. George. And you've actually got an event that's coming up on June what?
So it's June 6th down in St. George. I've booked out the Holiday Inn. It's in the convention center right by the St. George Convention Center. And yeah, I'm super excited. And it's going to be the one in many. So the Miller Motivation Group, the business that I started, it's a speaking bureau. I'm all about like surrounding myself with positive people and people that have gone through things and have a story to be able to tell and some inspiration to be able to share. So like Stacey Brunell, her tagline is failure to finisher. I mean, she got pregnant as a teen, and it's her story, so I'm not going to tell all of it. Right?
Oh, I know Stacey.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
She's awesome, right?
We're from Ogden.
Yeah. Like, she is amazing. Now she runs marathons. She started, foundations. An amazing lady. Love her to pieces. So she's doing one July 18th as well, and then we'll probably take a month off or so. And really, we're kind of testing the waters. Have you read the book 20 Miles a Day?
No.
In it says...
Remember Jack London, Call the Wild?
Oh, okay, I got you. It says shoot bullets, not cannons, right? So we're just shooting some bullets, seeing if everybody's ready for it. But yeah, I couldn't be more excited. And look, even if I don't make a dime off doing it, the people that I get to interact with and the energy I get to create, and it's fun for me, man. This is fun. Where can people find out more information about all things you're doing? Because I know you're also starting a supplement line. Yeah. You got your hands in all kinds of stuff. Thank you. So we sell some swag, right? We got you a hat, Matt.
Awesome. He got me a shirt, too.
Yeah, what size?
And double XL.
Hey, don't knock on it, man. That's the size I wear, too, right?
Well, for different reasons.
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm going to go around telling everybody that we're the same size.
There you go. So yeah, we sell some apparel. The main thing is the speaking platform, but then we're also, because I get people that hit me up, you think it's crazy, but like a year ago I was 300 pounds, I got pictures to prove it, like super out of shape, and I just decided one day, like, how can I get up in front of people and talk about dedication and discipline and perseverance when I'm almost type 2, I was like type 2 diabetic, right? Mm-hmm. And I went to school for exercise science and health, and so I'm even worse than that, right? Like, I'm a hypocrite because I know better, and I'm choosing to make... So anyways, I get a lot of people on my followings that will ask me questions like, holy cow, your transformation is crazy. Like, what is it you do? So we're coming out with the same thing, MMG, except for it's going to stand for Miller Motivation Gear, and it's going to be a line of supplements for people that are trying to make a extreme body transformation.
Wow, your story is amazing, and we're so grateful that you stopped by and were able to share it with it. And so once again, your website is?
MillerMotivationgroup.com.
All right. Dr. Matt, any last thoughts?
I'm so grateful that you drove all the way up from St. George last night to come share your story with us. And you can tell when somebody really has the right stuff, that energy, it's palpable. And
the it factor.
The it factor. And so I think that if anybody has the opportunity to spend some time with you, they won't regret it. It'll be a positive experience for them. And I wish you the very best of luck. I hope things with your personal life and your family just kind of keep rolling forward. I don't know how they won't with all the positive energy you're putting out there. So thanks.
One last question. What book are you reading right now?
The Power Principle by Blaine Lee.
Good?
Oh, extremely good, because it talks about how there's 3 types of power. There's one that's like a force power, like I'm telling you to do this because I say so, which a lot of parents do, right?
So not Star Wars.
Right, no,
forcing.
not the force.
Okay, right.
Well, no, I guess it is kind of the force. It's by making them doing it, right?
Yeah, right.
Through physical threat, or if you don't do this, I'll do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the second type, which is like bargaining, right? Like, okay, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. And that's great, and that's above the first level where it's just straight through sheer will. But it only lasts as long as we both are in agreement and we're both getting something out of it. And then the third power principle is just through leading by example, right? So if you, like I work with the youth, and they have chores and they have things that they have to get done. Well, if one of them is in therapy and they can't do their chore, instead of me saying, hey, you do this because I say to do it, I'll step in and do their chore. Lead by example, right? And ultimately that's the most powerful is admiration and respect. That's the most powerful source of power that you can achieve. It's just sheer, hey, he's a good guy. He's in the right place. He does everything he's supposed to do, right? Setting the example, setting the bar.
Mentorship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you've got my admiration and my respect, and I want to say thank you for stopping by and sharing your story today on Project Recovery. Don't forget, we're brought to you by useonlyasdirected.org with their 3-part solution: speak out, opt out, and, of course, throw out. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.